Right. I do a vid about site injecting. Now, because I'm not using, I can't really do an injection. So, got some needles, and I'm just going to show you a point where you can go in. So, generally speaking, you can inject in any muscle. The higher the vascularity within the area, the more veins are there, then obviously the more risk you are of a bleed and such like. The bigger the muscle, generally the less painful. Greater area for the oil to disperse over. It's not concentrating in one area, therefore it's less painful. Now, obviously, generally speaking, we're always recommended glutes. I've never been a fan of glutes, apart from the fact I find them awkward, because you're not really seeing what's going on. Second big muscle normally recommended is quads. Strangely enough, I'm alright with deca, I'm alright with training quads, but I can't put testing quads. I get massive pip from testing quads. But that's just me personally, so obviously you have to really experiment where you can go and what you can go with. Now, the denser the muscle, the more painful. So, for argument's sake, calves and forearms are very dense. Within calves, the underlying calf muscle is even more painful. Forearms is painful. So, you can use a bit of sense, but literally you can stick it in any muscle. Obviously, you've also got to look at the fact that if you do get PIP, particularly with a virgin site, so a site that you've not used before, it's whether you can practically live with that. Now, for argument's sake, say you injected forearms and you got PIP. Well, that's going to be quite disabilitating. You're not going to be able to use your hands properly, you're probably not going to be able to use your arms properly, and general everyday tasks are going to be quite painful. Well, if you did it in your quad or your arse, you might walk with a bit of a limp, but it's not going to really ruin your day. Now, due to pain, areas to avoid. Obviously forearms, traps, hamstrings, and then I actually find calves not so bad, but then I've done calves for a lot of years, so that's down to personal preference. Generally in order of these, from a point of view of tolerance, you're looking at glute, quad, delt, bi, tri. I've seen people do lat, I've done lat myself, and it was very much a hit or miss. Sometimes it wasn't so bad, other times it was fucking agony. So, and I'm not quite sure why I had such variation in it, but that's how it was. So, the question is where? Right. Now, a lot of people say, don't tense, keep it relaxed. If it's tense, the fibre is going to be tighter, it's going to be elasticated, it's going to be stretched. So obviously it's going to make it denser, but it isn't the end of the world. The problem with relax sometimes is that you can't always target exactly where it is on the muscle in the flex position. So it's personal preference. Now with bicep we have two heads. So you've got this head and you've got this head. You can go in either. Now personally what I like to do, is flex, find a center point. Now for me it's quite good because my tattoo actually gives me a point, and then you can't really see this, but I'll go in there. Now if you do it tensed, obviously you've got to remain tensed or in a contracted position. If you do it extended, you've got to remain. You can't change because that needle will literally tear through fibre if you do. That is the least painful of the two heads. That is slightly more painful. And like I say, for me it's not so bad because I've got a tattoo, so I can do it relaxed because the tattoo marks the point of where I am. You can use a mole, a freckle, any mark on your skin if you want, or you can even just put a pen mark on it if you really want to be exact about it. Now regards tricep, generally I'll go in there, like that, or I'll come from underneath and I'll go in there, or there, somewhere around the main head. I can't obviously get around here, but if I have my wife inject me, I will try any of these spots. So, in general, what I would advise is that you stay away from attachment areas and you go into the meatiest part of the muscle. Now, a couple of things. Aspiration. It's very, very dated. Not even medical professionals really do it anymore. You're not going IV, so air bubbles aren't an issue. But obviously you want to minimise them as much as you can. Now, what will very commonly happen is as you go in, you'll clip past the vein with the needle. So imagine this finger's the vein, this finger's the needle. As it clips through, obviously, it opens the side of the vein, but it seals it with the needle. You inject the fluid, and then as you draw out, you release the opening and blood will come out. Now, it's not the end of the world if you get a bleed. Just clean it up, simple as that. There is, though, a danger that it can go the other way, and the blood pools inside. Now, quite often this is regarded as people mistake this for an abscess, because you'll get swelling, you'll get heat, you'll get inflammation, and it'll be quite painful. Now, what I've always said with a situation like this, what put it in there will help get it out. So basically, if you get a situation like that, stick a needle in it, aspirate, and see what comes out. If it's predominantly blood, you know you've got to bleed. If it's getting pussy, then you know you've probably got some form of infection and you need to seek medical advice. Simple as. Unfortunately, if you go to a GP, most of them will diagnose it as abscess, whether it is or not, and sometimes they can be a bit laboured about it all. Oh, now talking about bleeding. No. Now with delts, generally, I would go medial, so I'd go in here, so literally like that. I know some people do front. I've always found it quite painful, and I know some people do rears, and I've found that again, because it's such a small muscle, what I've found with rears is it just tends to swell and almost lock up. So I'd stick to medial. Traps I wouldn't touch at all. The trap runs right up into the neck. Tension in there is going to cause headaches. It's going to cause all sorts of other issues. Lats, you want to go into the meat, but again, that's quite a painful shot. Quads, it don't really matter. Mid muscle, avoid teardrops, avoid near the kneecap. Swelling down there is going to make it very, very painful, and it's going to put tension on the kneecap, which is going to again cause problems. So mid quad, most people generally go out ahead, but you can go mid. But I'd stick to outer quad because it's obviously where the most dense and bulk of the muscle is. Avoid the IT band down the side like plague. Glute, quarter your heart, top right hand quarter. Quite simple. Calf. Do not go into the underlying muscle. When you're going to do a calf, if I can get my foot up and not knock everything off the side of the desk. That's what you're aiming for, that one there. Now, I quite often go in through the side here. Or through here. I have done the outer head, but again, because it's a small muscle, it's painful. So they effectively are your areas for sights. If you go through the flat face of the calf, then you're going to pass through the outer head and you're going to go into the underlying muscle. So that's why I tend to go in through the side, so I get into the depth of the muscle. Take it slow. Obviously, when you start, swab the area, swab your bottle top, fresh works, draw, break the air out, and just smoothly put it in. Now, if you get a metallic taste in your mouth, you get a coughing reaction, shortness of breath, anything like that, then generally speaking, what it means is you've got it in your bloodstream, with the exception of tren. It'll take 10 minutes or so to pass. Just lay down, relax, be calm, and it will pass. But it can be quite a rough ride, actually. One of the reasons for this is benzoyl alcohol travels in your bloodstream to the lungs and it aspirates through your lungs. It comes out through your lungs, which results in the lungs contracting. So therefore you can't get oxygen in because the vascularity contracts. PGF2A is a very similar effect. If you've ever run proglastins, you'll know what I'm talking about. First time you do it, you will shit yourself. Not just because you're scared, but it will literally make you shit yourself as well. But anyway, that's another story. Now, tren is a bit unique, and there's various stories about how to avoid tren and crossflow. A common one is do it really, really slowly. Now, I've heard people say 10 to 15 minutes for one injection of 2 mil. Personally, I've never suffered it, so I can't really say. It's a side effect. Now, my understanding from what I know is that the most likely culprit is that it does somehow and for some reason aspirate through the lungs the same as benzyl alcohol does. But there is actually no study or scientific evidence to support anything at the moment. We just literally don't know. So everything is best guess theories. But like I say, a lot of people swear by doing it really, really slow, or heating it, or heating the area, various other things that seem to help. Try them all, see what works for you. But unfortunately, it's one of those things. If you're going to get it, you're going to get it. And it's just something you have to put up with. So that's it. That's effectively site injecting. So like I said, mid-muscle, smaller the muscle, most likely the more pain. Go into the meatiest part, stay away from the attachment points. Definitely stay away from anything around your kneecaps. Forearms, no. Calves, only for the brave. Traps, no. Lats, again, only for the brave. Oh, chest, a full back chest. Yeah, chest is alright. Some people get away with it quite well. I've always found it tends to pull in my chest, but I think that's something to do with the fact that my pec's torn. But yeah, by all means, chest is definitely an option. Abs, no chance. Again, very durable, dense muscle, and therefore quite painful. And quads. Quads is obviously a common one, and the old glutes, which is the star of it all. I don't think I've missed anything. Now, regards site growth. Does site injecting cause site growth? Well, yes and no. It is true that at the point of injection, some of the hormone will fracture from the carrier. So it will break away from the ester and the oil. And that's a physical rupturing of that bond, that connection, due to the injection. So a higher concentration, only slightly, but there will be a higher concentration in the point of site. And anecdotally, most people that site tend to have reasonable response of muscle growth within the area in which they site. So there's definitely something going on. Fascia stretching, I doubt it. Unless you're really sensitive and get really big swellings off a particular muscle, I very much doubt there'll be much in the way of fascia stretching. So then, if that's not the case, how is it? Well, like I said, you're going to get a slightly high concentration of hormone within the area of injection. Now, it's not massive, and how much difference it really makes in the real world is probably not really quantifiable. But what you will get is localized pain. Now, there's always been this big argument that, well, if site injections cause site growth, then you'd have huge arses. Well, actually, quite a lot of people that do glute inject do get huge arses. But this is my theory. When you site inject into a muscle that can easily be isolated, so we're talking bicep, tricep, or delt, then when you train that exercise, generally for a singular range of motion. Not so much delts unless it's side laterals, but bicep, all that does is move your forearm from there to there. Triceps moves your forearm from there to there. So with that in mind, it's a singular range. There's no compound movement. There's no muscles that assist that range of movement. So as a result, when you've got localized swelling in your bicep and you train it, your mind will link to the pain that's already generated within the muscle. So therefore, your mind connection with that muscle is a lot stronger, a lot quicker, and therefore the focus of the load goes directly onto the muscle you're targeting. So, as a result, your training is more productive. Now, if you're talking about glutes, well, we don't really do much in the way of glute isolation movements. So that's not going to be such as an effect. And the localized pain is in a small area of the glute. The glute is rather a large muscle, so again, you're not going to get that overall focus on the glute muscle. Same with quads. Obviously with calves, smaller muscle, more direct, more localization. Bis, tris, delts, the same. Now if you did it in chest, And what I've do found is it has made it easier. Now, I've always struggled with focus on my chest, which is one reason I've got such a shit chest, and the fact that it's torn to pieces. So when I've sighted chest and I've had that localized pain, when I've done a compound movement like a bench press, I've found it easy to focus on the pec, and I find it doesn't hit my front delts and my triceps anywhere near as much. So that's why I think personally that site injecting does add to site growth. Not because there's really anything to do with the chemicals entering the site at that point, but more to do with the fact that you have a localized pain, which means you have a point for which your brain can focus on during stimulation of that muscle. Makes sense to me anyway. So, hope that's been useful. It's been quite a long video. Take care guys, and I'll catch up with you soon.